The holding cell on the Varath sovereignty's primary command station was better appointed than any holding cell Soren Vale had previously occupied, which told him something. The previous cells had been functional, a surface to sleep on, minimal light, the specific managed discomfort of spaces designed to remind their occupants of their situation. This cell had a proper sleeping surface, adequate light, a small table, and the quality of a space that had been prepared for someone whose presence had been anticipated at a level above standard prisoner processing. He had been sitting at the small table for 6 hours when the door opened. He had spent the 6 hours doing what he did in all contested situations, which was assess the cell's construction, the materials, the ventilation, the specific quality of the lock mechanism sound when the outer door had sealed, the station's ambient sounds, the frequency of personnel movement in the corridor, the shift change that had occurred at the 4th hour, the administrative communication patterns that were audible at low volume through the ventilation. The capture itself, clean, professional, minimal force, the specific efficiency of a military force that had been watching him for longer than the 4th day, and that had allowed him to reach the coordinates that confirmed what they suspected before making the capture. He had been building the accurate picture for 6 hours. The accurate picture said the capture had been escalated to a level significantly above standard prisoner processing. The cell's quality confirmed it. The command station rather than a detention facility confirmed it. The 6 hours of no contact confirmed it. Someone was deciding something rather than processing him through standard channels. The door opened. The Queen of the Varath sovereignty entered. He had read the intelligence briefings on Queen Sarath Varath, 42 years old, sovereign for 19 years, 11 territorial expansions. The architect of the Varath sovereignty's current strategic position, which the Accord's planning division discussed with the careful quality of people discussing a problem they did not yet have an adequate solution for. The briefings had described her operational characteristics with precision, ruthless, politically brilliant, without the softness that the Accord's political culture associated with legitimate leadership. The briefings had described the operational characteristics accurately. They had not described the specific quality of someone who had been performing absolute authority for 19 years, and who had, underneath the performance, the particular quality of someone who had not been looked at directly in a very long time. He saw this in approximately 90 seconds, which was the speed at which his assessment attention operated when the subject was significant. She looked at him with the assessment quality of 19 years of ruling, the practiced, rapid evaluation of a person who processed what was in front of her and produced decisions. She expected what the intelligence briefings on Accord reconnaissance specialists described: trained resistance, professional deflection, the managed quality of a captured soldier operating within the parameters of their training. He was sitting at the small table. He looked at her. "You came yourself," he said, not a question, an observation. She looked at him. "Yes," she said. "That's unusual," he said, "for a captured reconnaissance specialist." "Yes," she said, "it is." He looked at her steadily, not with defiance, not with performance, but with the direct quality of someone seeing accurately and not managing what the seeing produced. "You wanted to see something for yourself rather than through a report," he said. "What were you trying to see?" She was quiet for a moment. The quality of someone who had been asked a direct question by a prisoner and who was finding the question more interesting than anticipated. "Sit down," she said. He was already sitting. She looked at him. "You're already sitting," she said. "Yes," he said. "I've been sitting. Would you like me to stand?" "Most people stand when I enter," she said. "I didn't know you were coming," he said. "I would have stood if I had known. It seems like the appropriate thing to do." He started to stand. "Sit down," she said. "I didn't ask you to stand." He sat. She looked at him for a long moment. He looked back with the same direct quality, not aggression, not submission, simply the quality of someone present in the situation rather than performing a response to it. "You're not afraid," she said. "I'm aware of my situation," he said. "Fear isn't useful in my current situation. Assessment is useful." "And what does your assessment tell you?" He looked at her. "That the person in front of me came to this cell herself rather than sending a representative," he said. "That the cell is better appointed than standard prisoner detention. That the capture was professional, minimal force, no unnecessary harm. That these things together suggest that the person in front of me is interested in something other than what a captured reconnaissance specialist is typically useful for, which is intelligence and deterrence." She looked at him. "What am I interested in?" she said. He was quiet for a moment. He looked at her with the full, still quality of his engaged attention directed at someone for the first time in 12 years of reconnaissance work, in a way that was not tactical but simply honest. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I think you're not entirely sure either." The Queen of the Varath sovereignty looked at a captured Accord reconnaissance specialist in a holding cell, and did something she had not done in 19 years of absolute rule. She did not know what to say next. She stayed for 2 hours. The 2 hours produced a conversation, not an interrogation, a conversation. He asked her questions about the decisions behind the 11 territorial expansions, the reasoning rather than the outcomes. She answered with the quality of someone who had not been asked about the reasoning in a long time, who had been presented with analyses and consequences and political assessments, and who had not been asked, simply, what she was thinking when she decided. She asked him why he had chosen reconnaissance work, what 12 years of going into contested territory unnoticed had taught him. He answered with the specific, honest quality of someone who had no political investment in the answer. The managed version and the honest version produced the same outcome for him, which was that he was a prisoner in a holding cell. When she left, she did something she had not previously done in 19 years of ruling. She thanked the prisoner for the conversation. He looked at her when she thanked him. "Come back," he said, "if you want to continue." She came back. The next day and the day after and the day after that, 10 days of visits that were not interrogations, and were not official, and were conducted in the space between the Queen's official function and her unofficial self, which was a space that had not existed for 19 years, and that was, in the visits, being created. She told him things she had not told the court. Not state secrets, the personal things, which were the things the court did not ask about and did not want, and that had been, in 19 years, accumulating in the space where the person inside the role had been existing without being addressed. "You looked at me directly," she said on the third day, "in the first 90 seconds. "Yes," he said. "Why?" "Because you were there," he said. "I look at what's in front of me, it's the work." "I was in front of you as the Queen," she said. "As a person," he said. "Yes, you were also that. The Queen is the role, you are the person in the role." He paused. "I see both. It's hard to unsee the person when the person is visible." She was quiet for a moment. "I have been the role for 19 years, she said. "I know," he said. "The person is still there." She looked at him with the quality of someone receiving information they had been waiting a long time to receive, and had stopped expecting. "You're a prisoner," she said. "Yes," he said. "That doesn't change what I see." On the 10th day, the political crisis arrived. A formal court petition, signed by 7 of the sovereignty's 12 senior house leaders, requesting a formal review of the prisoner's disposition and the Queen's management of the tactical intelligence he represented. The petition was within the sovereignty's legal framework, a legitimate political tool deployed for political purposes wrapped in legitimate legal language. She told him about it at the end of the 10th visit. "What do they want?" He said, "The prisoner disposed of," she said, "in the standard manner of prisoners who have provided their tactical intelligence value." He looked at her steadily. "And what do you want?" he said. She was quiet for a long moment. The quality of someone who has been the role for 19 years being asked what the person inside the role wants, and discovering that the person has an answer. "I don't want that," she said. "No," he said. "The petition has to be answered," she said. 5 days. "What are your options?" He said. She looked at him, the quality of someone who recognized he was asking her to think through the problem with him, not asking her to solve it for him, asking her to think out loud the way she had been asking him about the reconnaissance work and the reasoning behind his decisions. "3 options," she said. "Comply with the petition, deny it on grounds of ongoing tactical intelligence value, which requires demonstrating that the prisoner is providing intelligence that justifies the detention. Or," she stopped. "Or," he said, "change the prisoner's status," she said, "from prisoner to formal guest of the Crown. The sovereignty's framework provides for the elevation in specific circumstances. It has been used 4 times in the sovereignty's history." "What circumstances?" He said, 3 of the 4 times, exceptional value to the sovereignty through military service under a negotiated arrangement. The 4th time," she paused. "The 4th time, the exceptional value was determined to be personal." He looked at her, the holding cell was quiet. "Tell me about the 4th time," he said. The 4th time was 430 years ago. A captured Keth Confederation diplomat, elevated after saving the reigning queen's life during an assassination attempt in the detention facility. 6 years at the Varath court afterward, described in the official historical record with the specific, careful language of official histories that know what they are describing, and are choosing to use the terms the official record required rather than the terms the actual situation warranted. He read the plain meaning of the official record's language accurately, because reading what was actually there rather than what was officially described was the work. "The court is aware of the historical precedent," she said. "Yes," he said. "I imagine they are." The petition's signatories include 2 House leaders who are students of the sovereignty's legal history, she said. "They know the elevation mechanism. They know what using it implies. And they're watching to see if you use it," he said. "Using it confirms what they're already suggesting," she said, "that my judgment regarding the prisoner is compromised. It provides them the political evidence they need to escalate the challenge from a formal petition to a full court review of my authority. And not using it," he said, "requires complying with the petition or demonstrating tactical intelligence value that you have not been obtaining because you haven't been interrogating me." "No," she said, "I haven't." He was quiet for a moment. He looked at the cell that had become, in 10 days of visits, something other than a holding cell without having changed its physical characteristics. He looked at Sarath. "I'm not going to provide the intelligence," he said. "I know," she said. "Not because I think it would help," he said. "Because the Accord's outer system's defensive network is what protects the Accord's people. I don't provide it to resolve a political problem in a court I'm a prisoner of, regardless of what the resolution would mean for me." She was quiet. "That being said," he said, "the elevation mechanism." She looked at him. "The 4th time," he said. "The diplomat who saved the Queen's life, the 6 years, the official record's careful language." He paused. "The political cost of using the mechanism now is significant. The petition is pending. 7 House leaders are watching." "Yes," she said. He looked at her with the full, still quality of his engaged attention, finding what it had been finding since the first 90 seconds of the first visit. The person who had been performing absolute authority for 19 years, and who was, in 10 days, becoming visible to herself in a way that she had not been visible in 19 years, and who was terrified of it, and who was not going to back away from it. "Sarath," he said, her name, not the title. She looked at him. "What do you want?" he said. She was quiet for a moment that had the quality of 19 years of absolute authority encountering a question the authority didn't answer. "I want the visits to continue," she said. "I want the person I have been in this cell for 10 days to continue existing. I want—" She stopped. "I want something I don't have adequate language for," she said, "because I have not previously needed the language." He looked at her. "I think," he said, "that you should use the elevation mechanism. The political cost is significant," he said. "I know both options have significant political costs. The difference between them is what you want. What you want should be part of the accounting." She looked at him. "You are a prisoner in my holding cell telling me to use the legal mechanism that changes your status," she said. "I am a prisoner in your holding cell telling you to use the legal mechanism that does something you want to do regardless of what it means for my status," he said. "My status is secondary to the question. What do you want?" She used the mechanism. The court's response was immediate, political, and exactly what she had anticipated. The 7-House petition escalated to a full court review challenge within 24 hours. The most significant political crisis of 19 years of rule. Not because the challenge was legally strong, which it was not. The elevation mechanism had been used correctly and within the framework's provisions. But because it was politically strong. Because the 7 House leaders had the coalition the governance structure required for a full review. And because the full review was the mechanism by which the sovereignty could require the ruling sovereign to demonstrate that their decisions served the sovereignty's interest, rather than their personal interest. Sorin, now a formal guest of the crown, was in a considerably better appointed suite. He was also the center of a political crisis in a court he did not fully understand, and whose resolution he was watching with the assessment attention directed at something that was not territory or defensive networks, but the human infrastructure of a court that had been performing absolute authority for 19 years, and was now encountering the question of what happened when the person performing the authority wanted something the performance didn't allow. He did something no one in the court did. He helped, not politically. He did not have the standing or the court knowledge to help politically. He helped in the way of someone who had been in contested territory for 12 years and understood that the most useful thing in a contested situation was accurate information about what was actually happening. He watched the court. He saw it accurately. He told Sarath what he saw. What he saw. The seven-house coalition had a structural weakness the challenge's legal strength obscured. 3 of the 7 house leaders were in the coalition not because they opposed the elevation mechanism's use, but because they were in political debt to the 4 house leaders who were the challenge's genuine drivers. The 3 debt coalition members would exit the coalition if the 4 genuine drivers' underlying political interest were addressed directly rather than through the challenge mechanism. "How do you know about Ven's political debt to House Karath?" she said. "I watched Ven's representative in the court's public sessions," he said. "The representative's positioning relative to the Karath delegation is the positioning of someone managing an obligation rather than expressing a position. I inferred the debt's basis from the 3 sessions where the positioning was most pronounced, which were the 3 sessions addressing the Karath territory's eastern boundary status." She was quiet for a moment. "You identified a political debt from body language in 3 public sessions," she said. "I identify what's in front of me," he said. 12 years of going into contested territory and coming back, the skills transfer. "The 4 genuine drivers," she said, "their underlying interest. The Accord's outer systems trade corridor access," he said. "The corridor that the sovereignty's most recent territorial expansion closed. The 4 house leaders represent the houses whose commercial interests depend on the corridor. They've been looking for a mechanism to challenge your authority since the expansion and have found it in the current situation." She was quiet. "The expansion was a strategic decision," she said. "Yes," he said. "It was also a commercially costly decision for 4 specific houses." She looked at the political challenge that had been the most significant crisis of 19 years. She looked at Soren, who had been watching her court for weeks with 12 years of contested territory quality and who had identified the path through the crisis. "A partial reopening of the corridor access," she said slowly. "Not a reversal of the expansion. The strategic rationale is sound. A negotiated access arrangement for the affected commercial routes." "Yes," he said. "Which addresses the 4 genuine drivers' underlying interest, removes the political debt's relevance for the 3 coalition members, reduces the 7-house coalition to 4 houses, which is below the governance structure's threshold for a full review challenge." She looked at him for a long moment. "You solved my political crisis," she said. "I gave you accurate information," he said. "You solved it. You knew the governance structure and the house relationships and the expansion's strategic rationale. I knew what I could see from watching the public sessions." She looked at him with the full quality. The composure and the thing underneath the composure and the language she had been finding for the thing underneath, which was the language for what had been building since the first 90 seconds, and the 2 hours, and the 10 days, and the weeks. "Soren," she said. "Yes," he said. "When the crisis is resolved," she said. "When the challenge is withdrawn and the political cost has been paid, what then?" He looked at her steadily. "What do you want then?" he said. She looked at him. 19 years of absolute authority, and the role and the performance and the space where the person inside the role had not been looked at. She looked at the person in front of her who had been looking at her directly since the first 90 seconds, and who was looking at her directly now, and who was asking, for the 3rd time, what she wanted. "I want you to stay," she said. He looked at her. He looked at the suite and the court and the command station and the Accord's outer systems defensive network that he had not provided because it would be wrong, and the accidental circumstances of a capture and a better appointed cell and a queen who came herself and 2 hours that became 10 days that became weeks. "Sarath," he said, her name. "Yes," she said. "I'm going to be honest with you about what staying means," he said. "Yes," she said, "I know. I'm an Accord reconnaissance specialist," he said. "A prisoner elevated to formal guest status through a mechanism that produced the most significant political crisis of your reign. I have no political standing, no house affiliation, no function in the sovereignty's governance structure." He paused. "Staying means staying as exactly what I am, which is not nothing, but not what courts usually want their sovereigns to choose." "I know what courts want their sovereigns to choose," she said. "I have been choosing what courts want for 19 years. "Yes," he said. "What I want," she said, "is not what courts want. What I want is the thing I have been looking at for 12 weeks in a holding cell and a suite, which is a person who looks at me directly and tells me what he sees and asks me what I want and does not perform at me or manage me or position himself relative to me for political purposes. She looked at him steadily. That is not nothing. That is the thing I have not had in 19 years and that I did not know was missing until it was in front of me. He looked at her for a long moment with the full, still quality of his engaged attention, finding what it was finding, which was this. A person who had been performing absolute authority for 19 years, and who had become, in 12 weeks, visible to herself, and to him in a way that was real and significant and worth staying for. The corridor negotiation, he said, it will take time to structure. Several months, she said. The commercial access arrangement requires negotiation with the affected houses and verification with the Accord's trade representatives. The Accord's trade representatives will require an Accord liaison familiar with the outer system's commercial routes, he said. She looked at him. Yes, she said. I know the outer system's commercial routes, he said. I assessed them. It's in the reconnaissance documentation. She looked at him. You are proposing to serve as the Accord liaison for the trade corridor negotiation, she said. I am proposing to be useful in the specific way I am capable of being useful, he said. It also gives me a formal function in the sovereignty's court that is not the formal guest status, which is politically cleaner. The Accord would need to agree, she said. Yes, he said. I would need to communicate with the Accord's diplomatic division, which requires you to provide the communication access. She looked at him. You're asking me to provide communication access to a captured reconnaissance specialist so he can contact the organization he was captured working for, she said. I'm asking you to provide communication access to the Accord liaison for the trade corridor negotiation, he said, which is what the formal arrangement would require. She looked at him for a long moment. The access will be arranged, she said. Sarath, he said. Yes, she said. The staying, he said. I want to be clear about what I'm saying when I say yes to it. Then be clear, she said. I am staying because you are the person I have been looking at for 12 weeks, and what I see is someone who is real, he said. Not the role, the person. The person who came to the holding cell herself and stayed 2 hours and came back the next day and told me things she hadn't told the court and asked questions that no one else asks and looked at what I said rather than managing it. He paused. I am staying because that person is worth staying for, not the queen, the person. She was quiet for a moment that had the quality of someone receiving something they had been waiting a long time to receive, and that was larger than they had prepared for. The person, she said, has not been looked at in 19 years. I know, he said, I'm looking now. She looked at him. She looked at the court and the challenge and the corridor negotiation and the months ahead and the political cost that had been paid and would continue to be paid. She looked at all of it, then she looked at him. Stay, she said. Yes, he said. The corridor negotiation took 4 months. In the second month, the 7-house coalition reduced to 4 when the partial corridor access arrangement was presented to the 3 debt coalition house leaders and the political debt's relevance was removed. The 4-house challenge fell below the governance structure's threshold. The challenge was formally withdrawn. In the 3rd month, the Accord's diplomatic division responded to the liaison arrangement communication. The response was careful. The Accord's diplomatic division was not in the habit of ratifying captured reconnaissance specialists in foreign court roles, and the careful quality reflected an institution determining whether the arrangement served the Accord's interests before agreeing. The response asked for the reconnaissance specialist's assessment of the trade corridor arrangement's terms. Soren provided the assessment. It was accurate. The Accord's diplomatic division, reviewing it, found that it served the Accord's commercial interests in the corridor access arrangement in specific ways that a negotiation without an Accord familiar participant would not have served. The liaison arrangement was ratified. In the 4th month, the corridor access arrangement was concluded. The 4 House leaders whose commercial interests had been the challenge's genuine driver reviewed the terms and found them satisfactory. The most significant political crisis of 19 years was resolved. Not because the challenge was lost, but because the underlying interest that produced the challenge had been addressed at its actual basis. Sarath told Soren about the conclusion in the suite over dinner, as she had been telling him significant things for 4 months. At the dinner table, in the quality of the ordinary evening, which was the quality they had been building since the holding cell and that had become, in 4 months, the quality of the life. It's done, she said. Yes, he said. She looked at him. The practical basis for the staying, she said, is resolved. He looked at her. The practical basis was never the basis, he said. She looked at him with the quality that was not the role's quality, and that had been, in 4 months, becoming more present. Not replacing the role's quality, but existing alongside it. The person and the sovereign occupying the same space without one erasing the other, which was what the person had needed and had not had for 19 years, and that had not been available until someone looked at both simultaneously. No, she said, it wasn't. He looked at the suite that had been his quarters for 4 months. He looked at the court he had been watching. He looked at the queen of the Varath sovereignty across the dinner table from him. He looked at her. Sarath, he said. Yes, she said. The Accord's liaison ratification is renewable, he said. The corridor arrangement has a standard 5-year review cycle. The liaison role remains relevant through the first review cycle at minimum. She looked at him. 5 years, she said. At minimum, he said. She was quiet for a moment. The court will continue to have opinions about the liaison's presence, she said. Yes, he said. The court will also continue to receive accurate assessments of what is actually happening rather than what the intelligence says is happening, which has proven useful. Yes, she said, it has. He looked at her. I am not the role, he said. And you are not the role. What we are is what has been in the holding cell and this suite and the court sessions and the dinners. That is what I am staying for. She looked at him for a long moment with the full quality. 19 years of absolute authority. The role that had become the thing itself and the person underneath it who had not been looked at, who had been, in 4 months of holding cell visits and a suite, and the corridor negotiation, and the dinners, and the name said rather than the title being looked at, being seen, being present in a way that was not the performance of presence but the actual thing. The role, she said, the sovereignty's governance structure, the houses and the political costs and the court's opinions, I cannot remove these. I know, he said, I'm not asking you to. What are you asking? She said. He looked at her with the direct quality that had been his since the first 90 seconds of the first visit, the quality that saw the person and not only the role. I'm asking, he said, to continue looking at what's in front of me. Which is you, not the queen, you. She looked at him. Outside, the Varath sovereignty's primary command station continued its operations. The court continued to have opinions. The houses continued their political accounting. The governance structure continued its monitoring of a sovereign who had made a personal decision in a public role, and whose choices would continue to be political matters for as long as the court was the court. These things were real. They were also not the whole of the accounting. The rest of the accounting was the dinner table and 2 people eating at it, and the quality of something found in a holding cell, and a conversation that had not been an interrogation, and a queen who had come herself, and stayed 2 hours and found, in the honest answer to a direct question, the thing she had not known was missing. The 5-year review cycle had 4 years and 11 months remaining. The staying continued. The court had opinions about the staying. The court's opinions were not the staying. The staying was the dinner and the direct question and the honest answer, and the name said rather than the title, and what do you want said 3 times, and the 3 answers found incrementally in the language that had not previously been needed, and that was now present, the language for the thing that had been in the holding cell since the first 90 seconds, and that was, at the dinner table and in the suite, and in the 4 years and 11 months remaining, the work. Not the reconnaissance work, the other work, the work of looking at what was actually there, which had always, in 12 years of contested territory and 10 days of holding cell visits and 4 months of political crisis and corridor negotiations and dinners, produced the accurate picture. The accurate picture was this. The dinner was good. The staying was real. The person across the table from him was visible, fully, directly, in the way that she had not been visible to anyone in 19 years, and the visibility was not going to be managed away or reviewed or petitioned against or resolved by any governance structure's mechanism. The visibility was the staying. The staying was the visibility, 4 years and 11 months, at minimum.